A waiter quietly placed one final meal onto the table. Not a royal feast, not an expensive banquet, just a simple plate of pasta, mashed potatoes, and vegetables. Within hours, the man who started the deadliest war in human history would be dead. April 30th, 1945. Berlin was collapsing. Soviet artillery pounded the city day and night. Entire neighborhoods had become piles of burning rubble. Smoke covered the sky. The sound of explosions never stopped. Above ground, Germany was losing its final battle. Below ground, history was about to change forever. Nearly 8 meters beneath the streets of Berlin sat a reinforced concrete bunker, known as the Führer bunker. It had become Adolf Hitler's final headquarters. The rooms were small. The air was damp. Electric lights replaced sunlight. Every wall vibrated as artillery shells landed nearby. For the people trapped inside, there was no escape. Only a few years earlier, Hitler stood before enormous crowds. Millions cheered his speeches. His armies marched across Europe. Country after country fell under Nazi control. At the height of his power, he controlled much of the continent. Now, everything was disappearing. Maps covered the conference room walls. Every few hours, officers placed new red markers across Germany. Each marker meant another city had fallen, another army destroyed, another defeat. The red lines kept moving closer to Berlin. Nobody could stop them. Hitler refused to believe the reports. He still ordered attacks that no longer existed. He demanded victories from soldiers who had already been captured or killed. Reality had become impossible to accept. Even his closest generals knew the war was over. Yet one routine continued almost normally. Meals. Every day, the bunker kitchen prepared breakfast, lunch, dinner. Not because anyone enjoyed eating, but because routine gave people something to hold on to while their world collapsed. Hitler's diet surprised many people. Despite leading one of history's largest armies, his meals were remarkably simple. In his later years, he usually ate vegetarian food, vegetables, soup, rice, pasta, potatoes, fruit. Historians disagree about every detail of his diet, but multiple eyewitnesses described him regularly eating meat-free meals during the final years of the war. Then came the morning of April 30th. No speeches, no meetings, no hope, only silence. The bunker staff moved carefully through the narrow hallways. Everyone understood this would be Hitler's final day. A cook quietly prepared lunch. Nothing extravagant, just pasta with a light sauce, creamy mashed potatoes, and a small serving of vegetables. No champagne, no celebration, no elaborate desserts. Only a modest meal served inside a crumbling underground bunker. Think about that for a moment. One of the most powerful dictators in history ended his life with a lunch that many families could make from ordinary kitchen ingredients. History often ends, not with grandeur, but with astonishing simplicity. The kitchen inside the Führer bunker was surprisingly ordinary. No marble counters, no silver trays, no grand dining hall, just a small underground kitchen, doing its best while an empire collapsed overhead. Food had become scarce. Berlin was surrounded. Supply trucks rarely reached the city. Fresh ingredients were almost impossible to find. Every meal depended on whatever remained in storage. Around midday, the kitchen staff prepared Hitler's final lunch. According to eyewitness accounts from those inside the bunker, it was a simple vegetarian meal. Most historians describe pasta with a light sauce, served alongside mashed potatoes. Some accounts mention vegetables. Others simply describe a plain, meat-free lunch. Like many details from Hitler's final hours, not every witness remembered it exactly the same way. But they all agreed on one thing. It was simple, remarkably simple. Imagine standing in that room. Outside, millions of lives were changing forever. Inside, someone stirred a pot of pasta. Someone mashed potatoes. Someone carried a plate down a narrow hallway. History often turns on moments that seem completely ordinary. The waiter quietly entered Hitler's dining room. No one spoke. The plate was placed on the table. Steam slowly rose into the cold bunker air. For a few seconds, everything felt strangely normal, almost peaceful. Hitler barely touched conversation. Witnesses described him as unusually quiet. His face looked pale. His shoulders were slightly hunched. His famous confidence had disappeared. The man who once shouted before enormous crowds now spoke only a few words. Around him, the bunker staff continued their work. Secretaries typed documents. Telephone operators answered calls that changed every minute. Military officers studied maps covered in red arrows. Each report brought worse news. Soviet troops had reached central Berlin. Entire German divisions no longer existed. Escape was becoming impossible. Here's something many people don't realize. Only one day earlier, on April 29th, Hitler had married Eva Braun. After more than a decade together, their marriage lasted less than 40 hours. There was no orchestra, no celebration, no cheating guests, only a short ceremony inside a concrete bunker while explosions echoed above. After lunch, Hitler met briefly with several members of his staff. He thanked them for their loyalty. Some shook his hand. Others struggled to hold back tears. Many had followed him for years. They knew this was their final goodbye. Then came one of the darkest moments inside the bunker. Hitler ordered that his beloved German shepherd, Blondie, be used to test cyanide capsules. The dog died almost immediately. Witnesses later recalled the shock that spread through the bunker. If even Blondie was gone, everyone understood there was no future left. Outside, the battle for Berlin continued without pause. Artillery shells exploded every few seconds. Buildings collapsed into the streets. Smoke covered the city. The Red Army moved closer with every passing hour. Hitler had finished his last meal. The plates were cleared away. The dining room fell silent once again.